Hi and a very good day we bid to Dr. Idris. We are from Chemical Engineering Group and today we're going to present about Minamata disaster. I'm Toh Jian Heng and first, let us go through the introduction of the disaster. Minamata disaster is actually caused by a disease named Minamata disease, a neurological disease which is caused by severe mercury poisoning. The cause is the consumption of methylmercury contaminated seafood, and the source of pollution is the illegal discharge of wastewater containing methylmercury by Chiso Corporation and Showa Denko. The signs and symptoms includes ataxia, which is the lack of voluntary muscle movements coordination, sensory disturbance, hands and feet numbness, muscle weakness, vision loss, as well as auditory disorders. It might cause insanity, coma, paralysis, and even death in extreme cases. As of March 2001, there is a total of 2,265 victims with 1,784 deaths, and it is considered as one of the 4 big pollution disasters of Japan. Now, let's take a look at the chronology of Minamata disaster. Back in 1908 to 1932, Chiso Corporation opened a chemical factory in Minamata, and the acetaldehyde production using mercury catalyst began. In 1951 to 1956, the coal catalyst was changed to ferric sulfide, and the first case of Minamata disease was reported. In 1958 to 1959, the wastewater discharge route was changed to Minamata River, causing more severe mercury contamination. In 1962 to 1965, first batch of congenital disease victim was certified, and second outbreak occurred in Niigata Prefecture. In 1968 to 1970, the national government concluded that the mercury was the cause of Minamata disease at both prefectures. In 1971, Showa Denko was found guilty of negligence and the patients won compensation. In 1973, Chiso Corporation was found guilty of negligence too, where the Minamata patients has won compensation. Lastly, in the year of 2004, the Supreme Court of Japan has ruled that the national government was responsible for not preventing the spread of Minamata disease. And now, this table actually shows the damage amount and countermeasure costs in Minamata disaster. We can actually see that a lot of damage has been done, including health damage, environmental pollution damage, and fishery damage, and hence pollution controls and preventive measures were taken by the authorities. And the total cost per annum is actually 12,754 million Japanese yen, which is approximately 511 million ringgit Malaysia. That's all for the introduction. Thank you.
Hi Dr. Idris, my name is Lee Tze and I will be presenting about the ethical failures leading to the occurrence of both Minamata disasters. First, Chiso Corporation. They strongly deny allegations and conceal their involvement in the disaster. Even though being heavily suspected as a culprit at the time, they continued manufacturing acetaldehyde without stopping the use of mercury compounds until 1968. To make matters worse, they refuted the findings of Kumamoto University research team and restricted Dr. Hosokawa, the first person to prove that Chiso was accountable for contaminating Minamata Bay, from conducting further experiments. The second ethical failure of Chiso was that they were trying to mislead the public away from the truth. This is evident when they criticized researchers who put the blame on mercury waste from their factory, while supporting researchers that blamed the disease on other potential causes. Not only that, they even presented a misleading photo opportunity to prove that they did treat the wastewater before discharge. Chiso's third ethical failure was that they refused to assume responsibility. This is because Chiso made deals with the victims who were desperate and legally ignorant. They signed contracts stating that Chiso would only compensate individuals for their misfortunes and illnesses, but would not accept any present or future liability. The victims were not only violated physically, but also mentally disregarded. Next, the ethical failure of local government was that they did not officially acknowledge mercury pollution as a cause of disease outbreak until 1968. This is because Chiso had a great influence in Minamata due to the rapid expansion of its chemical plant. The fact that victims were resented as a threat to Chiso and the economy of Minamata shows that the government was concerning more about economic development rather than the citizens' health. In addition, the government did not implement any regulatory measures to stop the pollution of Minamata Bay. It was the government's negligence for failing to foresee the adverse effects posed by the wastewater from Chiso's plant. As for the Niigata Minamata disease, just like Chiso, Showa Denko attempted to discredit the Kumamoto University research group and proposed a theory of their own. They suggested that the cause might be agricultural chemical runoff, which ended up in the Agano River basin after the 1964 Niigata earthquake. In fact, Showa Denko actually disposed of their untreated wastewater containing methylmercury, contaminating Agano River and the fishes in it. This subsequently caused mercury poisoning when consumed by humans. That's all from me. Thank you.
Greetings, Dr. Idris. My name is Ting Lee Ling, student ID 23630. I will be presenting on the 4 technical failure theories. The first technical failure theory is the usage of inorganic mercury as catalyst in the acetaldehyde production by Kieser Company. This results in the production of methyl mercury as byproduct. In the reaction, acetylene is mixed with sulfuric acid and mercury oxide. Mercury ions are generated to catalyze the reaction. Acetylene might convert to mercury acetate through intermediate 1 and 3. Mercury acetate then converts to methyl mercury through decarboxylation process. The second technical failure theory is the usage of ferric sulfide as process oxidizer. To maximize production, in 1951, oxidizer is changed from manganese dioxide to ferric sulfide and nitric acid. As ferric sulfide has a weaker oxidation tendency than manganese dioxide, more methyl mercury is generated. The third technical failure theory is the high concentration of chloride ions in the reaction vessel. It induces the evaporation of methyl mercury, resulting in the accumulation of methyl mercury in the rectifying column drain during distillation process. An intermediate of the acetaldehyde production can be transferred readily to methyl mercury chloride in the presence of abundant chloride ions. 1000 ppm of chloride ions measured in the wastewater discharged from the rectifying column prove this theory. The final technical failure theory is the absence of wastewater treatment system. Kieser Company did not install any wastewater treatment system to remove methyl mercury and other contaminants from the waste stream, but directly channel it to the sea. It also does not carry out any form of dilution in order to dilute out the contaminants. This is why there is a high amount of methyl mercury found in the wastewater.
I'm Yuan Han, and I would like to talk about the mitigation measures against the Minamata disease and also the recommendations for prevention of mercury pollution. So in 1959, after the outbreak of Minamata disease, a cyclator purification system was installed by Kieser Corporation, but it was proven ineffective to treat the methyl mercury waste. So in 1966, the discharging of methyl mercury waste was stopped, and the original acetaldehyde production method was terminated by the Kieser Corporation to shut down the source of methyl mercury waste. The government carried out the effluent control through the law enforcement under the Water Quality Control Law and also the Factory Effluent Control Law. The environment restoration was also done by conducting the project involving the dragging and then filling of bottom sediments in Minamata Bay to remove the polluted bottom sediments in water. Next, the Minamata Prefecture's government controlled the intake of seafood from Minamata Bay among the locals by spreading a constant of polluted fish intake and advised to fishing industry on the operations of self-restrained fish catching. The pollution monitoring was carried out by investigations on the water quality, bottom sediments in Minamata Bay and Agona River, and etc. The promotions of research and development activities was carried out on the clinical feature of Minamata disease, and an IMD was established by the government of Japan to assist other countries experiencing the similar mercury pollution problems. Moving on to the recommendations, the government shall enforce laws and regulations, limit the number of factories which have authorities to use the mercury in production process, design and specify emission standards for mercury discharge clearly to prevent the mercury pollution. Number 2, substitution of technology and route in the chemical process shall be done. The government shall stipulate the limits of mercury content or straightaway ban the use of mercury, and the factories shall replace the production method which involve the mercury as raw materials or catalysts. Number 3, the procurement of mercury-free products shall be encouraged. The people shall support the eco-friendly goods and service, and to reduce the environmental effects like the mercury, products containing mercury shall be disposed safely. Number 4, the environmental technologies for emissions control shall be introduced in the factories. For example, the introductions of dioxin control, which can achieve 96.7% of removal of mercury from flue gas, shall be installed in the factories. Lastly, constant monitoring of mercury levels shall be done. The institutions to monitor mercury concentrations in the environment shall be established to serve in the development of technologies, and the institutions shall be established to obtain the high quality and analytical results to accurately estimate the adverse effect of mercury in areas of investigations.
I'm Si Ning and I will present on the lesson learned which are analysed across social, environmental and economy aspects. First of all, we should learn that discrimination perpetuates harm. Victims of Minamata disease experience discrimination and had destroyed the mutual trust among them. Next is the importance of information transparency. None of the information about Minamata disease was publicly communicated to the residents. Hence, we should communicate widely to avoid disease spread. Furthermore, early in-depth epidemiological studies should be encouraged as they will be valuable for future reference. Follow-up studies could also help to control widespread of disease. Next, we should be proactive in defending own rights. Local residents suffered from Minamata disease did not fight for their rights and resulted in poor welfare. Next, mass media plays an important role in creating awareness. Documentaries should be delivered to gain public attention on the disease and assist the victims to move toward remedies. Let's move on to the environmental aspect. First is to be responsive to the signals of sentinel wildlife. We should identify the problem and take action when wildlife impacts are observed to prevent human suffering. Next, prevention is better than treatment. People need to be aware of hazards and take preventive measures before accidents happen. Moreover, disposal is not a solution for pollution. Discharge of mercury into river contaminated marine lives and it took a long time to completely clean up the environment. It is also important to enforce strict environmental laws and regulations. Local government did not take appropriate actions to stop contaminations and it is necessary to punish the parties who violate the rules. Lastly, we need to be responsible with our environment by designing solutions to treat pollutants and consult professional bodies on law enforcement. Let's move on to the economy aspect. Firstly, investment in pollution prevention is important than gaining profit. People should invest in pollution prevention equipment instead of giving out compensation to the victims. The last lesson learned is that economy of a community should be balanced. Minamata disease caused thousands lost their jobs. Hence, we should always act and think responsibly and rationally. That's all for the lesson learned. Thank you.
Hi, it's me, Jian Heng again. So now I would like to conclude our presentation today. As per discussed, Minamata disaster is considered as one of the 4 big pollution diseases of Japan, at which it has caused severe environmental pollution and also serious health damage plus destruction of local economy and social stability. The technical and ethical failure were also discussed by the members, where Chiso Corporation and Showa Denko failed to treat wastewater before disposal and they disregarded the people for company's profit. The mitigation measures, recommendations and also lesson learned were also explained by the members from social, environmental and economy aspects. After all, the code of ethics and code of conducts are very important and crucial as the rules of behavior, values and also principles for compliance and risk mitigation purpose. Right, the code of ethics for young engineers, which includes registration, consultancy, supervision, regulatory requirements and also code of ethics should always be followed. Meanwhile, the sustainable development should always be prioritized by striking a balance among all 3 main pillars, which are social, environmental, and economy. Last but not least, engineering ethics are always essential to prevent failure and unethical actions. That's all from us. Thank you.